Before this video starts, this isn't me trying to convert you into a Linux cult member screaming Linux is life while wearing a penguin hoodie. I just want to talk about why I switched, what the experience was like, the good, the bad, and all the weird stuff that came with it. Also, yes, there are jokes in this video, please don't take everything seriously. Enjoy. Your bootload guy switched to Linux! Yippee! Now, this wasn't a recent decision. I switched like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago already. Time is running fast, dude. And before you panic, wait, what? Linux? Can you even play games? How are you even making this video right now? Calm down, I'll explain everything. But honestly, switching to Linux was one of the best decisions I made for my computer. At least for me, I don't know how about others. Like most people, I grew up using Windows. I still remember watching my dad use Windows XP like it was some magical alien technology. Years later, I asked him for a computer and he pulled an ancient computer from his closet. I'm talking random monitor, old keyboard, mouse, headphones, and a PC together by pure faith. Specs: 6GB of DDR3 RAM, AMD Athlon 2 CPU, terrible 1GB Nvidia GPU. But who cares? I could play Roblox and Minecraft, so it was pretty good. Now, as a kid, computers terrified me. Because everything gets heavier and heavier when time goes on, that old computer started crashing constantly. And hearing the blue screen of Death Demon sound at 2 AM was pure horror for a child. And this is where Linux kind of entered my life. One day, my cousin, being the new Linux cult member, comes to me, and yes, he uses Linux to this day. Bro, have you ever heard of Linux? And I'm like, what the fuck is Linux? And he texts me back like, wanna try it? And I'm like, sure. So he guides me through installing Ubuntu while I'm terrified of destroying my computer. Now remember, this was a long time ago. I believe it was version of Ubuntu 16. So he's like, bro, listen, just boot from the USB, bro. And I'm like, what if my computer explodes? What if it turns into a Terminator? And he's like, bro, just press enter. So I press enter, and guess what? We install it, and it didn't work. Like bro, somehow it got corrupted during install. I'm not sure how. Eventually my cousin comes over one day, fixed it, Linux works, and honestly, I fucking hated it. Back then, support sucked, Discord barely worked, Nvidia drivers were fighting for their lives, nothing made sense to me, and that terminal scared the absolute hell out of me. Now back in the day, Linux was more like for the tech people who understand computers a bit. I wasn't nowhere near these people as a kid. I was scared to even enter the BIOS, okay? So I went back to Windows. Fast forward, I buy a new computer with Windows 11 pre-installed. So yes, it's pretty recent. And oh my god, what happened to my favorite operating system? I mean, Windows 10 was already bad, but 11 just dug its own grave. Like, I don't need TikTok pre-installed on my computer, okay? So it kind of felt like Windows started feeling less and less like my own personal computer and more like some Microsoft server, honestly. And I'm sitting there like, huh, maybe my cousin was onto something. So eventually, one day, I text him back like, bro, I wanna try Linux. But this time, I actually understood computers a bit. I researched distros, I watched tutorials, and installed Linux all by myself. And guys, Linux felt like a whole new world. It felt like discovering America for the first time. When I first switched to Linux as a beginner, I did try Arch. I did jump and try to swim in the new fresh waters like a complete beginner. But later, I switched to something easier cause like, Arch is good, don't get me wrong. Arch is basically like jumping into the cold sea, being like, damn, this isn't so bad, and then you die because of hypothermia. At first, I dual booted with Windows because like, just to be safe, you know. Then I started learning terminal commands, customization, Proton, Linux gaming, you know. And thanks to Steam and Proton, gaming on Linux became way better than it used to be. I'm talking, if you have Steam on Linux, you can play like 98% of your games. So 1 month later, I deleted Windows completely. Gone. Reduced to atoms. Guys, I can't lie, at that point, I genuinely fell in love with Linux. The biggest difference was freedom. Windows felt like, please don't touch the system, no, you absolutely cannot delete Edge. Linux feels like, here are the keys bro, do whatever you want, customize and change everything, sure, I don't care. Break your operating system on accident, that's your fault, not mine, I give you the power. Linux actually makes you feel like you own your computer. and I got obsessed with customization. Bro, my desktop became so modified, nobody even knew what operating system I was using anymore. At one point, I also tried to modify and make my own version of the Linux kernel. Let's just say that configuration I was doing was horribly wrong and I got a kernel panic, which yeah. Now obviously Linux isn't perfect. Some apps still aren't fully supported. Some games don't work, and because Linux gives you the freedom, you actually need to take care of your system. Like for example, Linux tells you to update but doesn't force you to. Like if you want to, you can literally ignore updates as much as you want. But then one day you will turn on your computer and Linux can just stop functioning. It's not like Windows that forces you to update. Like Windows makes you update. And by the way, if you think it's kind of faulty if Linux can break if you don't update or not function properly, I just wanna say literally Windows and Mac and many other operating systems would break if you didn't update them. By the way, there are so many Linux distributions, it can genuinely confuse beginners. Mint, Ubuntu, Arch, Fedora, it sounds like Pokemon evolution. Linux distros are basically different flavors of Linux. They all work a bit differently depending on your needs. For example, Arch is extremely fast and it's also really good for DIY. Kali Linux is basically good for cybersecurity, for example. Now you might be wondering, so can you actually play your games? Can you use your apps? And honestly, yes, I can. Now after I came back to it after so many years, I genuinely didn't have any problems. Linux is fast, lightweight, stable, and works great for what I do. Does every single program support Linux? No. And this is where I want to talk about sacrifice. I think when people switch platforms, whenever it's Linux, Android, Mac, whatever, they don't realize that change usually comes with sacrifice. The moment I switched, I already knew, alright, well, Photoshop probably won't work, and Filmora, my editing software, won't work either. So I replaced them with other programs, found alternatives, and honestly, most of them worked completely fine. So when it comes to editing videos, making thumbnails, programming, gaming, everyday use, animations, doing voiceovers, rendering or writing script, or even playing games that are not normally supported, Linux handled all of it perfectly fine for me. Can I work and function on Linux? Yes. So genuinely, why would I switch back? Now of course there are problems. Games like Fortnite, Apex, League of Legends, a lot of competitive games with anti-cheat simply block Linux users. So if those are your main games, Linux might not be for you. And support on Linux can still be messy sometimes. But again, it's sacrifice. Also, when it comes to Nvidia drivers on Linux, now yes, some people use Nvidia on Linux perfectly fine. But when I once tried genuinely helping someone installing Nvidia drivers on Linux, bro, I swear, I wanted to evaporate on the same spot. AMD and Intel on Linux is basically plug and play, bro, have fun. Another thing about Linux is the terminal. And yes, if you switch, you should learn basic terminal commands. Now people will say, actually you don't need the terminal on distros like Pop! OS, Ubuntu, Linux Mint. And yeah, technically that's true, but the terminal is just faster, more practical. Also, when it comes to installing Wine or adding some architecture, you need to use terminal. For those who don't know, Wine is basically a program for Linux that allows you to run Windows apps on Linux. I'm gonna leave it completely basic, okay? This isn't a tech video. Instead of opening websites to install apps, you can literally just type sudo apt install steam. Boom! Done. Unless Linux decides to summon an ancient error message or whatever. But honestly, Linux genuinely surprised me. So if I had to summarize this video, I got fed up with Windows 11, decided this was the last straw, switched to Linux, fixed problems when they appeared, learned new stuff, and honestly, I've never enjoyed using my computer more. Linux is fast, stable, good for gaming, good for work, and most importantly, Linux feels amazing. Linux didn't change just my operating system, it changed how I feel, think, and use my own computer. And last message I wanna say, if Windows works for you, or Mac, or iOS, or Android, whatever, then good for you, no need to switch. I don't want this to be some tech video, I just want to relate to people and tell my story how I even got to Linux in the first place. And yes, if you are wondering, I am daily driving Linux. I'm not dual booting, I don't have Windows as my second operating system, my computer is pure Linux machine. Thank you for watching. Damn, this video took such a long time to make. I've been very busy with school and stuff. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching and thank you for everything you have done for me. Thank you for all of your support and I'll see you again soon in another video. And also thank you for the amazing fan arts you guys send me and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.